If you thought that Trunks was a simp in the last two chapters of Dragon Ball Super, you got another thing coming because he goes further beyond with the simp energy in this one. But to start things off, we're going to first talk about the character of Krillin, who I will give credit to Dragon Ball Super in saying that they've really did a good job of utilizing his character in this arc as a whole, specifically because of the fact that in this chapter, we see that it starts off with Krillin finding Hedo's zombie goons in the store and he brings them in for interrogation, and along the way he bumps into Mai. Now, the thing that separates Krillin from Goten and Trunks is how he's working a conventional job, being a cop, but then he brings out his powers whenever he finds it necessary, whereas with Goten and Trunks, this is a stark contrast where they're trying to use their powers at any moment that they have an opportunity to mimic their clean god hero. But to move on from this, we definitely have to pull the race card by talking about the black character, whose name is still not revealed. I mean, they named all of the white characters first, but they still haven't given a name to the black one. I'm just gonna call him Miles Morales, because that's what you guys have been calling him in the comment section below. And when we pulled the race card with Miles Morales, if they end up calling him Sharpie, or if they end up calling him Ink or something like that, now that would be really interesting. But the interesting thing about this character is that he's literally the only known black male at this point that's at Trunks' school. I mean, maybe we've seen some background characters and such, but he actually uses the word swag in a sentence. So what's the probability that this unnamed black character just randomly uses the word swag out of all of the other characters that could have said that word? And just to follow on with the stereotypes, this character is great at playing the drums. Now, for those of you who've never been in a band, I've been in band when I was in middle school, there is a stereotype that black people are really good at playing the drums, specifically because in my 3 years of playing in the band, it was always a black person who was always on the drums. But either way, I got the race card stuff out of the way. We can continue this conversation by talking about Goten, and you will not believe this. Goten actually got some shine. Now, one thing that Goten cleverly did is that he explained why he is only ever seen on the way to school, and also, he also explains to a classmate Flyer, which, I mean, they're coming up with these school pun names so hilariously. He explains to her that the reason why he's so close to Trunks, even though Trunks is a grade above them, is because of the fact that their parents are old family friends, which in reality, Goten's not really lying, because they are effectively friends when you consider the fact that, I mean, Goku was already somewhat allied with Vegeta before both Goten and Trunks were born, and he was already allied with Bulma, so it is realistic. And to top things off even more, we see Goten getting some solo action, and by solo action I don't mean that type of solo action, but he gets to fight the Elvis Presley rip-off android, and he defeats him all by himself. It's so shocking to hear this, but, you know, Goten actually managed to get some shine without Trunks being around. But of course, you know, in typical superhero fashion, the characters are complete idiots by not realizing that he's X2, considering the fact that he always seems to disappear every time X2 shows up. But for now, we're gonna move on to the character of Mai, who definitely redeemed her intelligence from the previous chapter. She becomes self-aware that Hedo was spying on them with his robotic bugs, and essentially lures him to the Clean God dance by asking Trunks to go there with her. Little did she know that Hedo himself just so happens to also be a Clean God fan, which ultimately sucks for poor Trunks, as we learn from Goten that she only really went to this dance to search for Dr. Hedo, and she had no real interest in going with Trunks in the first place. But ultimately, this whole scene was a really nice callback to the Red Ribbon Army using spy bugs to figure out information on our heroes. But this takes us to our first major simp moment dealing with Trunks, because he's overly excited for Mai asking him out instead of him asking her out. And the interesting thing that we learn is that he definitely has other options with another character like Flyer, and there's probably more girls who would definitely want to be with the richest kid in the world. But obviously, if there's gonna be one character that simps for Mai, it's gonna be Trunks. Which takes us to simp moment number 2. Trunks is going out of his way to get brand new clothes just for Mai at this dance. And we also see that when we move over to the dance, Goten gets some disrespect too, because Flyer wanted to go out with Trunks the whole time, and basically she's using Goten as a replacement, and he's bringing her there to spy on Mai, when in fact she has no interest in being there with Goten anyways. So it's like every single time that we see them with some female in this chapter, It's always because of some other reason as to why they're with them. It's never because they actually want to be there with them. And this directly takes us to the ultimate shot in this manga chapter where we have the entrance of Trunks and Mai. Now Trunks comes in wearing a suit as usual, as we expected, but Mai comes in wearing battle armor. It's like she's this battle armor warrior lady, and obviously this is not a random choice by Mai. She obviously wants to be as armed as possible, considering the fact that things are going to get dangerous with Dr. Hedo being around. And this is also a good callback to what Mai had said earlier in the chapter, saying that she doesn't like being the damsel in distress. But this leads us to simp moment number 3. Trunks gets dissed when asking Mai to get up closer. She basically says, "I'm fine here." Basically continuing that cold energy that Trunks just seems to not get enough of. But then when we get the sequence where Dr. Hedo and Trunks are at the dance, we actually see that Dr. Hedo created a fake student as a date to attend so that he would somewhat fit in with the other classmates. And, you know, it's pretty hilarious when you look at this fake student that Dr. Hedo created, because it's like, what idiot would not realize that this robot is not human? But I mean, obviously it's just there for gag humor, but it was just hilarious to think that, you know, if you're a student seeing that walking by, that you would actually think that was a person. But either way, we see that Dr. Hedo has a really soft side to him as he shows vulnerability in a very flawed human way, as Hedo was having a fanboy convo with Trunks about Clean God. And at this very moment, Mai is about to shoot Hedo, but she is stopped with Beta, who's basically been repaired, and is now going on a date with the other black character in Rula. And it's at this very moment that Krillin bursts in and attempts to arrest Dr. Hedo. And it's at this very moment where you get that classic villain, "you will never catch me" escape scene where he takes his disc back. And at this point we arrive at the moment of truth for Trunks and Mai, the moment that we've waited for the last few chapters. Mai orders Trunks to go after Hedo and admits that she not only knew that Trunks was X1, but she indirectly mentions that she has feelings for him, as she said he's the only Trunks that she's got. And of course, Trunks had to ruin this moment by being a simp once again, as he states he'll be the best superhero he can and begs Mai for a date, giving him simp moment number 4. Mai shockingly complies by saying she'll go on as many dates as he likes if he stops Hedo, and Trunks has to remind us even more that he's a simp by calling Mai ma'am, once again putting her on a pedestal for simp moment number 5. And at this point, what happens next really isn't that interesting, and it's fairly generic. They track down Hedo, fight a big mega dino robot, and save the day. Only to find out that Hedo didn't have a secret disc, but he had a picture of Clean God that was simply perfectly fit for a disc box. Then Hedo goes to prison, and that takes us to the end of the video.